program.
Thank you. So very good afternoon to everybody. My name is Elizabeth Koh and I'm a research scientist at the National Institute of Education in Singapore. And this paper is a collaboration with myself, Shibani, Jennifer Tan, who's here, and Helen Hong. And so this is one part of my project, and we want to focus on this framework that I'll be introducing to you soon, which is the team and self-diagnostic learning framework. Okay, so in learning analytics, Kreller and Dreschler, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, have conceptualized that the design of learning analytics, LA for short, enables both implicit and explicit pedagogies. And many pedagogical models in the design of learning analytics are relatively implicit, and they do not overtly direct learner behavior. And this is also good because it allows flexibility of use, but at the same time it could lead to confusion and even non-ideal practices. And so in this paper, I'll be looking at how this particular pedagogical model framework can be used in the context of collaborative inquiry tasks and demonstrate trial outcomes in a teamwork competency awareness program with qualitative data. And so one of the issues in learning analytics is the lack of pedagogic theory. This is one of the first few papers written by colleagues such as Ferguson. And this is also attributed to numerous studies that subtly embed pedagogical models and strategies in the design, or they only provide a broad overarching frame of the general theory. And some models even claim pedagogical neutrality. But however, we know that when we design learning analytics or the system, there are some type of assumptions or epistemological ways of how we design the system. And these actually determine what methods and types of learning analytics we use. So actually, by having these explicit pedagogical frameworks, these can actually provide direction for educators and stakeholders. Pedagogical frameworks can be represented very practically through learning designs, and Lockyer et al. Have defined it as learning designs as a sequence of learning tasks, resources, and supports that a teacher constructs for students over part of or the entire academic semester. So these learning designs actually help to make sense of basically what students go through in a class. And some examples of learning designs include the social networks adapting pedagogical practice tool, which is SNAP for short, from researchers such as Dawson et al. And also the learning analytics intervention design by Wise et al., which looks at the key principles of integration, agency, reference frame, and dialogue, and processes. So pedagogical frameworks actually provide a guide into how basically the students can actually learn a certain subject or learning outcome. And just to give you a slight background of the project that I'm looking at, we've all heard of 21st century competencies and how it is important in this day and age for work and for school. And collaboration is one of those competencies, including critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving, and so on. And in this project, we actually focus on collaboration, or basically looking at the skill of teamwork. And we recognize that teamwork is a multidimensional construct that focuses on members, the process of members working in a team. And despite many, there's a long literature of teamwork and collaboration, but exactly what to measure, how to measure, and the design of teamwork activities is still pretty, is yet to be firmly established, and there are many means of trying to understand this. So what to measure in terms of teamwork conceptualizations, as the earlier presentation has showed, there are many ways of, such as looking at MSLQ, peer learning, but for the current context that I have, which is I'm looking at high school students, 14-year-old students in Singapore. We have decided to create our own measure of teamwork, which consists of 6 dimensions. The first 4 dimensions are more cognitive in nature, and look at coordination, mutual performance monitoring, decision making, constructive conflict. And the next 2 dimensions are a bit more social-emotional in nature, looking at team emotional support and team commitment. Okay, I'll not go through all this in details, but this is just to let you know the background of the teamwork dimensions that we're looking at. And the next thing is in terms of how do learning analytics come into play? And Ferguson and Shun have defined 5 types of analytics that are relevant in this social age. They have talked about social network analytics, discourse, content, disposition, and context. And as I'm a mixed methods researcher, I'm actually also interested to look at a combination of these analytics because these also afford different ways of looking at collaboration and understanding the whole process. But for this particular study that I'm looking at, I'm just going to look at disposition analytics, which is basically to do with survey behavioral measures. Okay, so going into what this framework is about, the Team and Self-Diagnostic Learning Framework, or TSDL for short, this framework is based on these key informing theories. The experiential learning theory, which is by Cope, which states that humans learn through a transformation of experience, and there's a cycle of 4 stages, from concrete experience to reflective observation, where students observe or what they see and reflect on it, and then abstract conceptualization, making sense of generalizing and making sense of what they see, and then active experimentation, which is trying it out, and the whole cycle repeats itself. So this is one of the basis of the Team and Self-Diagnostic Learning Framework. And the other informing theory is the Learning Analytics Process Model. Okay, so this is, let me show the picture. This is by Verbet et al. And they talk about how data can be used to help learners gain awareness. And this helps them to, questions help them to reflect, self-reflect, followed by making sense of those reflections through answering or commenting. And then this will cause behavioral change and impact and help them to gain new knowledge and skills. So this is also a continuous loop of awareness, reflection, sense making, and impact. And the third informing theory, which is I think which most of you should actually know about, which is the social constructive theory of learning, which is to do with just collaborative learning. As learners discuss and negotiate, they are able to learn from each other. So these key informing theories serve as the basis of what we have called the Team and Self-Diagnostic Learning Framework. So the first stage is, I termed it the team-based concrete experience, where students in a team actually engage in team activities. Okay, it could be any type of activities that students have to talk, negotiate, discuss, and work as a team. And this is followed by the second stage, which is the self and team awareness building stage. So in this stage, students actually are able to gain awareness of their team activities, and this is through the process of using analytics. In this case, I'll be showing you some examples of a very simple visual analytic. And then this is followed by the third stage, which is a self and team reflection and sense making. So in this third stage, students actually are given time to take a step back. Yesterday at the keynote, we had the stop and look and reflect. So in that sense, this is where they stop and think and reflect about their team processes and make sense of it and think about how they could actually go forward such that they can make changes in their own behaviors. And this intention is for this cycle to repeat itself. And so I have this framework is sort of trialed in this teamwork competency awareness program that we carried out. That was about in 2014. Yeah. So this comprised of two sessions, a total of 135 minutes for 14-year-old students in a school in Singapore. There were altogether 7 classes with 272 students who participated in this study, and altogether there were 76 teams. They were divided in classes randomly in teams of 3 and 4. So they were in the same class, but in teams of randomly divided into teams of 3 and 4. And so all of them could use a computer one-to-one and a blended learning experience. The main aim of this program was for students to engage in the practice of teamwork and gain awareness of their teamwork processes. So this stage was, in a sense, our trial, so we were not able to repeat this trial for them to see the team growth and change. So it stopped only at the self and team reflection part. Okay, so this is another way of looking at our team and self-diagnostic learning framework through this program that we developed and which we implemented. So students actually engaged in this particular scenario, online chat with a dilemma, or basically a collaborative problem-solving task, okay, which I'll show you a picture soon. And then this is followed by the, analytics, which actually we have for this trial, we have looked at just the dispositional analytics, which is based on a peer and self-rating. And this was visualized to them as a microprofile. And then after that, they were able to reflect and sense-make using key questions, which will help them to externalize their knowledge and sense-make. And we had hoped that in the future we could repeat this at key junctions so that the team and the individual students are able to actually grow in terms of their teamwork competencies. So this is how our chat system, is a very simple chat system, looked like. And this was our task that we asked the students to do. It was a ethical task about pollution, air and water pollution, and what would the students do after they have seen this scenario. And in teams of 3 or 4, they would discuss what is the final answer to actually to solve this problem. And students were given about 45 minutes to actually chat online in this task. Okay, after that, so that was the concrete experience that they experienced in the team. After that, they were asked to rate themselves and their peers using this online survey, and this was constructed based on that 6 dimensions of teamwork competencies that I shared with you earlier. So after the self and peer rating, this gave us the data for our analytics, which is a which we called this visual analytic, which we called a micro profile, rather than a profile, because this profile is actually based on just this task, and which we told the students to rate themselves and their peers based on this task only, and because we also know that teamwork processes can change. So this next stage of self and team awareness building takes place in session 2, and this was, we gave them a paper form. At that time, we were still grappling with a lot of things, so we just gave them a paper form of this micro profile. And let me show you a picture. So it's a very simple micro profile, and I'll show you the different parts. So we just gave them the rating scores of themselves. So they rated themselves on a Likert scale of 1 to 5 on these 6 dimensions, with 5 being strongly agreed the highest. And then we averaged their peer ratings, how their peers rated them on average, and the overall was average of the self and peers. And this was also visualized through this radar chart, where they could compare how they themselves, in blue, this is a person who had rated himself quite lowly. He put a 2 for most dimensions, and how their peers have rated him, which is the one in red, and the overall. So this is what they also had one more, we also gave them one more score, which we called the overall similarity rating score. So basically, we looked at the differences between how they have rated themselves and how their peers have rated them. So basically, a negative value which means you have rated yourself lower than your peers. A positive value means that you have rated yourself higher than your peers. And in terms of the absolute number, if it's probably above 0.5, means it's quite relatively different. Okay, so so after that, they saw that micro profile. They were given in session 2 time to reflect on this micro profile, both individually and then as a team. So they were in the classroom. So we were given curriculum time to do this. So this was part of the activity in to learn about their team behaviors. So our questions actually were adapted from Jensen et al., where we looked at how they feel about the ratings in this microprofile and whether they agree with their peers or not. And then this is followed by their team reflections. So in the team reflections, we asked students how they thought about how their group have performed in this task that they have done earlier. And then the next important question was to set specific goals of how they could improve group performance in the future. We realized that this goal setting question was pretty important in terms of helping them to actually grow and progress in their teamwork behaviors. So students actually filled that up in paper form at this time with a reflection worksheet that we given here. So from this, we actually evaluated our program qualitatively. We are focusing on the qualitative findings, which include data from the focus group discussions with students. We had 6 teams that we had a focus group discussion with, and then interviews with the teachers. And we also examined the students' written reflection worksheets. Okay, so and these, from the data, we thematically analyzed and categorized the information, the data into codes and larger themes. Okay, so what are the findings of this overall program? Generally, students and teachers were receptive towards this program because for students, they were able to actually find out how others saw them and also understand themselves better in terms of these teamwork dimensions. So one of the students was saying, I was able to find out what others think about me and what I was able to do more. And the teacher shared, overall the program is just nice, timing is not too draggy, and the students enjoyed the first session. And for the second session, it is good for the students to know and express themselves according to their profile. So now we're looking at the focusing on the 3 stages of the team and self-diagnostic learning framework, which helped to serve as the guide in this project. So in this first concrete experience, students were able to use the computers, and they liked using the computers because they could go out of their normal classroom, and students liked typing, so they liked communicating online, and so they were generally also quite positive. But although they said that sometimes the task scenario, they wanted something that would give them a bit more life lessons or be related to current affairs. And they also liked the opportunity to perform this task with a new group of randomly selected friends, students in the same classroom. As for the next stage of self and team awareness building, both the students and teachers, because there was ratings involved, so some of the issues that they encountered was that some students may not have rated each other accurately or honestly. So probably bringing the question whether the need to train or to teach students how to rate others. And in terms of the dimensions of teamwork, some students found it slightly more difficult, so it would be good to provide realistic examples to students such that they understand what these different dimensions mean. As for the radar chart, which is the microprofile, students found this a very powerful visualization because it compared between their self, peers, and overall ratings. And they especially liked it when they scored highly on these dimensions. The last part was about the overall similarity score, because we had negative values, and I realized students don't really like to see negative values, so we had to share about, it was not so much the positive and negative values, but it was the magnitude that mattered more, because it shows a very big difference between themselves and their peers in terms of how they did certain things. So the next stage, which is the self and team reflection and sense-making stage, this in sense was the crux of the whole intervention, this whole framework. And so we focus on how the students actually feel about the individual set of reflection questions, and these, how they have felt about these individual questions actually range quite widely. Because sometimes they agree with their peers, sometimes they do not agree with their peers. And some students also do not really care so much about what their peers think of them. Okay, so the team part was actually quite insightful too, where students actually reflected on how their team has performed. Okay, so they felt that they could actually be able to be helpful and communicate better, and they also wanted to set goals to improve future team performance. Okay, but this reflection activity was slightly difficult for students because they were not as responsive as the earlier stages. But still, we feel that, and even what the students shared, that she became more aware as she did not know how to share and explain her ideas and reasons for why she disagreed with her teammates. So there's a sense of teamwork competency awareness was developed. So this suggests that the program was had made relative impact in the students' lives. Okay, and so these are some of the feedback from the teachers, that this reflection activity actually needs more time, as students actually would like to, even though it's difficult for the students to do this, but actually it will be a very important step for them to learn more about teamwork. Yeah, so in all, this program was able to help students to gain awareness of their personal teamwork competency and help them to share possible ways that they could improve their teamwork. And this, the TSDL framework actually helped to scaffold these activities, which in turn points to the pedagogical value and usefulness of the model. So future work will actually be looking at how more further analytics could be done, especially with regard to the discourse, because they were using online chat, and for more real-time system of the whole process. So in conclusion, pedagogical models actually provide this kind of frame and helps to align both the activities as well as the learning analytics, such that meaningful learning outcomes result. So that's all. I want to thank you.
Okay, and now we'll take questions.
Hi there. Thank you very much for the great presentation. I guess my question relates to a little bit about the concepts that you have used, because you started with collaboration, and then you continued with collaborative problem solving, and then you get into the teamwork. And from my experience, these could be very different in practice. For instance, lots of the group work starts with the intention of being collaborative, but then it ends up one student leading everyone else, or it ends up being a cooperative work, which is a teamwork, but it's different than being a collaborative work. So I was just kind of wondering if you have considered any further impact of these differences on the learning analytics that are created and the results that you have.
Thank you. So for this particular, what we're looking at in terms of what measures, thank you for sharing about the different aspects of collaboration, be it cooperative learning and so on. So for this particular study, we have looked at the 6 dimensions, which I mentioned earlier, of teamwork competencies. So that will be our what to measure, what we're looking at. And so I agree there are different levels of collaboration and aspects. So the microprofile, the visualization actually shows them on a scale of 1 to 5, where they stand based on their self and peer ratings. So in that sense, some of it, I agree, are related to the concepts of basically to do with role divisions, cooperation, interdependence. So there are a lot of intertwined concepts that are there. So yes, that's a possible way to look at it, but for this particular study, we have just focused on these 6 dimensions. Thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you for your talk. I actually have a comment and a question. And the comment is that it's actually spurred by 2 quotes you had on the slides. One was that the student thought that their peers rated them higher than they rated themselves. And the other is that the teacher said that, oh, I would like to see these radar charts too. And in my experience with having student teams rate their team members is that if they know that the instructors are going to see those ratings, they're actually afraid to be to be honest, they tend to give high marks to everybody on all dimensions. And so, and then it loses some of its power. So maybe it's actually better if the teacher doesn't see those ratings. Although maybe it's also useful if they do. So that poses a dilemma that I don't really know how to resolve. But you could think of, well, maybe just let the students work it out. And especially, and this actually comes to the second part of my, or my question after the comment. It seemed to me that you actually didn't, I liked how you have set it up with the cycle, but I believe you didn't actually implement the fourth phase of the cycle, in which students have sort of a chance to, well, implement or at least make plans for how they are gonna work together better, which might then happen during the next cycle. So I wonder if you had any thoughts on what might happen if you let students go through the cycle like 3 times or even more than that.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions. So for the first comment, it's something that's something that it would be good to have offline discussions more about, because in this case although it was part of the curriculum, students took this as I would say more of a fun activity. It wasn't graded. There was no grades attributed to this activity. So it was in a sense of the ratings and how they could be honest and so on. I would think it's higher, slightly my hypothesis would be higher than if this was actually graded, because basically there was nothing negative to lose because it wasn't part of any grade. Regarding the idea of the next future work, it's actually happening right now when I'm actually extending this study, and we are having basically we're able to actually look at the team growth and change. Yeah. So I haven't analyzed the data yet, but what I'm predicting would be, depending on how the students have really internalized the team behaviors, I would think their knowledge and also the way that they have rated themselves and their peers would actually grow. Basically, I expect to see a growth in their teamwork awareness competencies. Yeah.
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for your very interesting intervention. I would like to go in the same direction as the person who just talked before me. I have done a lot of team assessment, and what I observed is that there is a big bias in the way students rate themselves and their colleagues. And I would say that the weaker the team from the professor's standpoint in terms of results, the more indulgent the team. So they always rave about each other. You're fantastic, we're fantastic. And normally these are very weak teams. And if the team is strong, produces good result, it's also much less indulgent and will criticize the members of the team. This is what I've observed. The other things I may recommend is that you use an external observer, who could be a student, who would look at the team while it's performing. It's very difficult to assess yourself while you're at a task, whereas it's much easier to assess your colleagues if you're not participating in their task. So that external observer could have a checklist and rate the team. That would be an idea. Would not be very, not be very costly to do, and it could yield some different results.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Yeah, definitely would like to talk to you more about it also. Yeah.
Okay, before Pierre asks his question, I'd like to ask the next speaker to please come up and get set up.
It's me here.
Yes,
I have the feeling you can get more from the data you have. So what you call similarities is John's rating of Suzanne, the same as John ratings of John. Okay, but you have the opposite one, is John rating of Suzanne, the same as Suzanne's self-rating, which is probably more interesting. Then you have the symmetry question, is John's rating of Suzanne the same as Suzanne's rating of John? That's also interesting. And then if you have teams of more than 2, you have a triangle. Is John's ratings of Suzanne the same as Mike's ratings of Suzanne? So you have a lot of data that you can use to normalize the raw value that you have that have not much meaning, this raw value. You can also normalize with given the previous point to the average grade of the people, you know, you just take one of them, but you have many of them that you could exploit in your data set.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll consider that. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.